The fluorescent lights of the hospital corridor buzz like angry wasps as Jennifer Smith's phone vibrates for the third time. She doesn't need to check it. She knows it's the school again, asking why she was late for pickup. Her hands shake as she empties another trash bin, the industrial cleaner stinging her cracked knuckles. Through the rain-streaked windows, she can see her ancient Honda in the parking lot, the check engine light probably still glowing like an accusation. In her pocket, folded into a tight square, is the letter from Child Protective Services. Final evaluation in 14 days. 14 days to prove she's not failing Liam. 14 days to show she's more than a woman drowning in medical bills, exhaustion, and the kind of fear that tastes like copper on your tongue. The social worker's voice still echoes in her head from yesterday's visit. Ms. Smith, we're not questioning your love for your son. We're questioning whether love is enough when the electricity gets shut off and there's no food in the refrigerator. Jennifer blinks back tears and keeps moving, because stopping means thinking, and thinking means breaking. She has 2 more floors to clean before her shift ends at midnight, then exactly 6 hours to sleep before her morning shift starts at the coffee shop on Fifth Avenue. After that, if she's lucky, she'll have 20 minutes to see Liam before Mrs. Rodriguez from 3B has to leave for her own job. But as she steps outside into the October storm, her threadbare jacket already soaked through, she sees him, a man in an expensive suit collapsed against the brick wall, hyperventilating, rain pouring down his face like tears. He's clutching his chest, eyes wide with panic, completely alone. Jennifer's umbrella is cheap, already bent from too many storms, but it's all she has. She looks at her watch. She looks at the man. She looks up at the sky. Then she makes a choice that will change everything, though she doesn't know it yet. She walks toward him, umbrella extended, choosing kindness when she has nothing left to give. The day Jennifer Smith's life changed started like every other terrible day, with her alarm not going off. She jolted awake at 6:47 a.m. to find Liam already dressed, sitting on the edge of his bed with his backpack, worry creased into his 6-year-old face like he was 40. "Mom," he whispered, "we're late again." That's when she knew she'd failed to charge her phone, again, and the backup alarm clock had finally died, and she had exactly 13 minutes to get him to school before the tardy bell. They made it with 2 minutes to spare. Liam kissed her cheek and ran toward the doors, his shoes, 2 sizes too big, bought at Goodwill for when he grows into them, slapping against the pavement. Jennifer watched until he disappeared inside, then checked her phone. 3 missed calls from the hospital asking why she hadn't shown up for the morning housekeeping shift she traded for. A text from Mr. Patel at the coffee shop. "You're scheduled today, not tomorrow. Need you here now." Her hands went numb. She'd mixed up the schedule. Again. Exhaustion had turned her brain into Swiss cheese, full of holes where important things used to live. The letter from Child Protective Services arrived at 4 p.m., slipped under her apartment door while she was pulling a double shift to make up for the morning. She read it standing in the hallway because her hands were shaking too badly to work the lock. Final home evaluation scheduled for November 4th. Failure to demonstrate stable housing, consistent employment, and adequate childcare arrangements may result in temporary removal of the minor child pending further review. Jennifer slid down the wall and sat on the stained carpet, the letter crumpling in her fist. November 4th, 14 days. She had 14 days to become someone she wasn't, someone who didn't fall asleep standing up, someone whose car didn't sound like a dying animal, someone who could afford more than ramen and hope. By the time her night shift at the hospital started, the sky had opened up. Rain hammered Chicago's streets like it had a personal vendetta, turning sidewalks into rivers and gutters into waterfalls. Jennifer worked mechanically, emptying trash, mopping floors, scrubbing toilets in the surgical wing, while doctors making 10 times her salary complained about the weather. She stepped outside at 11:53 p.m. for her break, her cheap umbrella already struggling against the wind. That's when she saw him, a man in a suit that probably cost more than her rent, collapsed against the brick wall near the ambulance bay, soaked to the bone and gasping like he was drowning on dry land. "Sir!" Jennifer approached cautiously. "Are you okay? Do you need me to get a doctor?" He looked up at her with eyes so full of terror she forgot about being cold, forgot about being tired, forgot about everything except the raw panic on his face. His lips were moving, but no sound came out except those desperate, hitching breaths. Jennifer had seen panic attacks before, her own face in the mirror at 3 a.m., her cousin Danny after he came back from Afghanistan. She knelt beside him, rain soaking through her scrubs immediately. "Hey, it's okay. You're okay. Can you hear me?" He managed a jerky nod, still clutching his chest. "Good. That's good. Listen to my voice, okay? We're going to breathe together. In through your nose," she demonstrated, making it exaggerated. "Hold it, 1, 2, 3, now out through your mouth. With me. In." She kept talking, kept breathing, her umbrella held over both of them now even though it barely covered one person. Rain ran down her back in cold rivulets, but she didn't move. Slowly, agonizingly, his breathing started to sync with hers. The wild terror in his eyes faded to something more human, exhaustion, embarrassment, grief. He was handsome, she noticed distantly, in that sharp-edged way of men who spent too much time in boardrooms and not enough time sleeping. "Thank you," he finally managed, his voice hoarse. "I'm sorry. This doesn't usually." "It's okay." Jennifer checked her watch, 11:59. She needed to be back inside in 1 minute or risk getting written up, and she couldn't afford another mark on her record. "Do you have someone I can call? Are you here visiting someone?" He shook his head, water dripping from his dark hair. "No, I was just driving. I pulled over." His hands were still shaking. Jennifer made a decision. She pulled out her phone and called the cab company she used when her car died. "Yeah, I need a pickup at Northwestern Memorial, Ambulance Bay entrance." "Going to?" She looked at him questioningly. "Lincoln Park," he said quietly. "But you don't have to. It's done," the dispatcher confirmed. 5 minutes. She stood, her knees protesting, and held out her umbrella. "Take this. The cab will be here soon." "I can't take your umbrella. You'll get soaked. I work inside. You don't." She pressed it into his hands before he could argue, the bent metal frame suddenly looking shabby against his expensive watch. "Just pay it forward sometime, okay?" She was halfway to the door when he called out. "Wait! Your name. Can I at least know your name?" Jennifer turned back, rain already plastering her hair to her face. Behind him, headlights appeared, the cab. "Just someone who's been there," she said, and disappeared inside before he could say another word, before she could be late, before she could think about the kindness she'd just given to a stranger when she had nothing left for herself. She didn't know. She just handed her umbrella to Julian Cross, the Billionaire CEO whose face stared out from the Forbes magazine in the hospital waiting room. She didn't know his sister had died 3 months ago, a social worker killed in a car accident rushing to save a child. She didn't know he hadn't left his house in weeks until tonight, when the walls of his penthouse felt like a coffin and he'd driven aimlessly through the rain trying to remember how to breathe. All she knew was that she was late clocking back in. Her socks were squelching in her shoes, and she still had 3 more hours until she could go home to Liam. The umbrella, forgotten in Julian Cross's hands, dripped onto imported Italian leather seats as he gave the driver his address. He couldn't stop staring at it, this cheap, broken thing given freely by someone who clearly had so little. He didn't even know her name. But he would find out. The eviction notice came on a Tuesday, taped to Jennifer's door like a death sentence printed on corporate letterhead. 30 days to vacate. She read it 3 times, standing in the hallway, her grocery bags, discount bread, dented cans from the clearance shelf, a single bruised apple for Liam, cutting into her palms. The landlord cited chronic late payments and the water damage from the ceiling leak he'd never fixed. She had 30 days, which meant she had 0 days, because finding a new apartment required first month, last month, security deposit, and the kind of credit score that belonged to someone whose life wasn't held together with duct tape and desperation. Jennifer unlocked the door to find Liam asleep on the couch, still in his school clothes. Mrs. Rodriguez looked up from her knitting, sympathy etched into every line of her face. He was too tired for homework, Mija said. His stomach hurt because he'd eaten cereal for breakfast and half a peanut butter sandwich for lunch, Jennifer thought but didn't say. She paid Mrs. Rodriguez the $20 she could barely spare and locked the door behind her. The apartment was cold. She turned the heat down to 60 to save money, and the stack of bills on the counter had grown taller. Electric company, threatening disconnection. Hospital bill from when Liam had strep throat. Car insurance lapsed. She wanted to scream. She wanted to break something. Instead, she covered Liam with a blanket and made herself a cup of instant coffee, because her shift at the coffee shop started in 6 hours and sleeping would be a luxury she couldn't afford. The week became a blur of fluorescent lights and forced smiles. Monday, hospital 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., coffee shop 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., grocery store 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. Tuesday, repeat. Wednesday, Liam's teacher, Miss Patterson, asked to speak with her after school. Jennifer arrived 15 minutes late, still in her coffee-stained apron, and listened as the young teacher gently expressed concern about Liam's tardiness, his worn clothes, the fact that he'd fallen asleep during reading time twice last week. "Is everything okay at home, Miss Smith? I'm not trying to pry, but Liam seems tired, worried. That's a lot for a 6-year-old. Jennifer felt something crack inside her chest. "We're fine," she said, the lie tasting like ash. "I'm handling it." But she wasn't handling it. Thursday. Her car made a sound like something dying, a grinding, screaming protest that ended with smoke pouring from under the hood on the Kennedy Expressway. The tow truck cost $80 she didn't have. The mechanic quoted $1,200 for repairs she'd never afford. "Transmission's gone," he said, shaking his head. "Honestly, ma'am, this car's not worth fixing." Jennifer sat in the garage's waiting room and calculated. No car meant no way to get Liam to school, no way to get to the grocery store job in Oak Park, no way to be the 3 places she needed to be in one day. The CPS evaluation was in 10 days. She pulled out her phone and searched for weekend jobs, 4th jobs, anything. Friday, the social worker came. Diane Martinez was kind but thorough, her eyes taking in everything. The peeling paint, the space heater Jennifer was using because the apartment's heat barely worked, the mostly empty refrigerator. She sat across from Jennifer at the kitchen table, Liam at school, and laid it out plainly. "Jennifer, I can see you're trying. I can see you love your son. But love doesn't keep the lights on or food in his stomach. I need to see stability, consistent housing, reliable transportation, regular meals. Right now, I'm seeing a woman who's drowning." Diane's voice softened. "I don't want to take Liam from you, but my job is to protect him. You have 10 days to show me things have changed. Can you do that?" Jennifer nodded, because what else could she do? After Diane left, she worked a double at the hospital, then her morning shift at the coffee shop, then covered someone's evening at the grocery store. 36 hours awake. When she finally made it back to her car, still in the shop's parking lot, still dead, she sat in the driver's seat and let herself break. The sobs came from somewhere deep, the kind that hurt your ribs and made you wonder if you'd ever stop. She cried for Liam, who deserved better. She cried for herself, for the girl who'd once had dreams bigger than just surviving. She cried until she was empty. Then she wiped her face, blew her nose on a fast food napkin from the glove compartment, and opened the job listings again. There was a weekend cleaning gig at an office building downtown. For hours Saturday and Sunday, cash under the table. It would mean she'd see Liam even less, but it might be enough to scrape together first month's rent somewhere. Anywhere. She applied before she could think better of it. Across the city, in a penthouse that overlooked Lake Michigan like a kingdom, Julian Cross sat at his desk surrounded by monitors and made his assistant's life hell for the 4th day in a row. "Hospital staff records," he said. "Night shift. Anyone who worked October 23rd. I need names. Mr. Cross, privacy laws. I don't need social security numbers, Marcus. Just names of female employees working that night. It's not illegal to ask." His assistant sighed, the sound of a man who'd worked for difficult billionaires long enough to know when to stop arguing. "I'll see what I can do." Julian returned to the umbrella on his desk. Cheap black nylon, bent metal ribs, a wooden handle worn smooth by use. He'd been holding it when the cab dropped him home that night, and instead of throwing it away, he'd kept it. He didn't know why. Maybe because it was proof that the encounter had been real, that someone had seen him at his worst and hadn't looked away. His sister Emma would have liked her, the umbrella woman. Emma had believed in goodness, in helping, in showing up for people even when it was inconvenient. Emma had died doing exactly that, rushing to a home visit in a storm, T-boned by a drunk driver running a red light. The police said she died instantly, like that was supposed to be a comfort. Julian hadn't left his apartment for 2 months after the funeral. He'd let his board run the company, let his ex-fiancée pack up her things and leave, let the world spin on without him because he couldn't remember why any of it mattered. Then, 3 nights ago, the walls had started closing in and he'd gotten in his car with no destination, just driving until the panic attack hit him like a freight train. And she'd been there, a stranger with kind eyes and no reason to stop, who'd given him the only umbrella she had and disappeared like she was part of the rain itself. He needed to find her. He needed to say thank you. He needed to know that people like her still existed in the world. His phone buzzed. Marcus, with a list of 17 names. Julian began searching, one by one, looking for a woman who'd shown him what his sister had always tried to teach him, that sometimes the smallest gestures meant everything. Jennifer woke up on Saturday morning to a voicemail from her landlord that made no sense. "Miss Smith, there's been an error in our system. Your account shows rent paid through next month. I apologize for the confusion with the eviction notice. Please disregard." She played it 3 times, her heart hammering. Paid through next month? She hadn't paid anything. She'd been planning to beg for an extension, to ask if she could clean the building in exchange for time. This had to be a mistake, and mistakes like this didn't happen in her favor. They happened to people with luck, and Jennifer Smith's luck had run out years ago. She called back. The landlord sounded irritated, like she was wasting his time. "I said it's handled. Clerical error. We're square. But I didn't pay. The money's in my account, Miss Smith. Check cleared. Maybe you paid online and forgot? Anyway, you're good. Enjoy your weekend." He hung up before she could press further. Jennifer stared at her phone, that familiar feeling of wrongness crawling up her spine. People didn't just pay your rent. Banks didn't make errors that gave you free money. Something was happening, and she didn't understand it, and not understanding things when you had a son to protect was terrifying. Monday brought the second impossibility. She took the bus to the mechanic's shop to clean out her car's belongings before letting them junk it. But when she arrived, the Honda was sitting in the parking lot, hood closed, looking almost decent. "What's this?" she asked the mechanic, the same one who'd quoted $1,200. He shrugged, uncomfortable. "Got taken care of. Guy came in Saturday, paid in full, said to fix it right." "What guy?" "Didn't give a name. Tall, expensive suit. Paid cash. Left you this." He handed her an envelope. Inside, on plain white paper in neat handwriting, "Pay it forward." Jennifer's hands went cold. Someone was watching her. Someone knew about her car, knew she couldn't afford to fix it, knew exactly which shop it was sitting in. She thought about Liam, about strangers who watched single mothers, about every horror story she'd ever heard. What did he look like? Her voice came out sharp, afraid. The mechanic described him: dark hair, well-dressed, maybe late 30s, polite but quiet. It meant nothing to her. She drove home in her inexplicably repaired car, checking her mirrors every 30 seconds, her stomach churning. Wednesday, she found the envelope in her locker at the hospital. It was tucked between her extra scrubs and her lunch bag, sealed, with no name on the outside. Jennifer's fingers trembled as she opened it. $500 in cash, counted out in 20s, and a small card with a single image drawn in black ink, an umbrella. The umbrella. Jennifer sat down hard on the bench, her vision tunneling. The man from the rainstorm. The panic attack. She'd given him her umbrella and forgotten about it. Another moment of kindness in a life that kept taking and taking. But he hadn't forgotten. He'd found her somehow, had been following her, watching her, paying her bills and fixing her car and now leaving cash in her locker like she was some kind of charity case. She felt violated, exposed, grateful and furious and terrified all at once. At the police station, the officer behind the desk looked bored as she explained. So someone paid your rent, fixed your car, and gave you cash? Ma'am, that's not a crime. But I don't know who he is. He's following me. He knows where I work, where I live. Has he threatened you? Made unwanted contact? Sent inappropriate messages? No, but sounds like you've got a secret admirer. Maybe he's shy. The officer smiled like this was charming instead of terrifying. If he escalates, if you feel unsafe, come back and we'll file a report. But right now, count your blessings. Jennifer left feeling dismissed and more alone than ever. That night, she counted the money 3 times, stared at the drawing of the umbrella, and made a decision. She needed to know who he was. She needed to understand what he wanted. Because in her experience, nobody gave something for nothing. There was always a price. She started at the mechanic's shop the next morning, before her coffee shop shift. The mechanic was more helpful in daylight, maybe feeling guilty about his role in whatever this was. He paid by check, he admitted. Made it out to the shop, but the signature was clear enough. Julian Cross. Jennifer's stomach dropped. Cross. Like Cross Technologies. Yeah, had their logo on the check. Fancy stuff. She Googled him in the parking lot, and there he was. Forbes articles, business profiles, photographs from charity galas and tech conferences. Julian Cross, CEO and founder, estimated net worth $3.2 billion. And in one photo from 2 years ago, those same eyes she'd seen full of panic in the rain. He wasn't just some grateful stranger. He was a billionaire who'd apparently decided she was his new project. Jennifer's hands shook as she scrolled through article after article. There were older stories, too, about his sister, Emma Cross, a social worker killed in a car accident 3 months ago. The timeline clicked into place. He'd been having a panic attack outside the hospital around the time his sister died. Jennifer had helped him, and now he was trying to save her like he couldn't save Emma. She felt sick. That afternoon, instead of going to work, Jennifer took the L downtown to the gleaming tower that housed Cross Technologies. She walked through the lobby in her coffee-stained uniform and worn sneakers, past security guards and executives in $1,000 suits, and demanded to see Julian Cross. "Do you have an appointment?" the receptionist asked, her smile professional and dismissive. "No, but tell him Jennifer Smith is here. Tell him I have his umbrella." She didn't actually. The umbrella was long gone, left with him that rainy night. But she knew it would get his attention. It did. 5 minutes later, a man in an expensive suit, not Julian, but close enough in bearing, appeared and introduced himself as Marcus, Mr. Cross's assistant. "Mr. Cross will see you. Please follow me." The elevator ride to the 42nd floor felt like ascending to another planet. Marcus made small talk about the weather. Jennifer said nothing, too angry to trust her voice. Julian's office was all glass and steel, windows overlooking Lake Michigan like he owned the view. And there he was, standing by the window, the umbrella, her umbrella, on his desk like some kind of trophy. He turned when she entered, and for a moment, something like relief crossed his face. Then he saw her expression, and the relief died. "Miss Smith," he said quietly, "I'm glad you came. Are you?" Jennifer's voice was steady despite the rage shaking through her. "Because from where I'm standing, you've been stalking me. You invaded my privacy, followed me, broke into my locker, paid my bills without my permission, and treated me like some kind of charity case you could fix to make yourself feel better about your dead sister." The words hit him like physical blows. She watched him flinch, watched the color drain from his face. "That's not," he started. "Don't." She held up a hand. "Don't you dare tell me what this is, or isn't. You don't know me. You don't know my life. And you had no right, to decide what I needed or how to help me. Do you have any idea how terrified I was? How violated I felt finding money in my locker, knowing someone was watching me? I was trying to help," Julian said, his voice rough. You helped me when I was at your worst. Yeah, I did. Because that's what decent people do. We help. We don't turn it into some creepy surveillance operation where we play God with someone's life. Jennifer's hands were fists at her sides. I have a son. I have a social worker evaluating whether I'm fit to keep him. And you've been following me, watching my house, going through my financial records without permission. Do you understand how this looks? How dangerous this is for me? The silence that followed was crushing. Julian sank into his desk chair like his legs wouldn't hold him anymore, and Jennifer saw it then. Not the billionaire, not the stalker, but the broken man from the rain. Still grieving, still lost, still trying to fix something unfixable. Her anger didn't disappear, but it shifted slightly, made room for something more complicated. Julian looked at her across the expanse of his office, and for a long moment he said nothing. Then he stood, moved to the bar cart near the window, and poured himself a drink. His hands were shaking. "You're right," he said finally, his back still to her. "About all of it. I crossed lines I had no right to cross. I told myself I was helping, but really I was just trying to feel less helpless." He turned, met her eyes. "My sister died 3 months ago. Emma. She was a social worker, and she spent her whole life helping people who nobody else would help. She died driving to a home visit in a storm because some kid needed her and she couldn't say no." Jennifer's anger flickered, but she didn't let it die. "I'm sorry about your sister, but I'm not her. I'm not your redemption project. I know that." Julian set down his glass, untouched. "The night you found me, I was having my first panic attack. At least, the first one I couldn't control. I've been having them for weeks. In my apartment, in my car, anywhere the walls felt too close. That night I drove out because I thought if I kept moving, I could outrun it. I was wrong." He walked closer, but kept distance between them, respectful of the boundary she'd drawn. "You stopped when you had every reason not to. You were late, you were tired, you had your own problems. I know that now, and you still stayed. You talked me down. You gave me your umbrella, and you asked for nothing." His voice cracked. "Do you know how long it's been since anyone treated me like I was just a person? Not a checkbook, or a business opportunity, or a stepping stone. So you decided to stalk me?" Jennifer shot back. "That's your gratitude?" "No. I decided to find you, so I could say thank you. That's all it was supposed to be. But then Marcus pulled your employment records and I saw." He gestured helplessly. 3 jobs, eviction notice, a son, medical bills. I saw Emma in every line of that file, all the people she fought for, all the systems that failed them. And I thought, here's one person I can actually help. One person who deserves better than what she's getting. You thought wrong. Jennifer's voice was steel. "I don't need to be saved, Mr. Cross. I need to be respected. There's a difference. I see that now." Julian ran a hand through his hair, exhausted. "I see how arrogant it was. How invasive. I was so focused on fixing the problem that I never stopped to think about what you might want. What you might need that wasn't money." Jennifer studied him, this billionaire in his glass tower, surrounded by everything money could buy and looking more alone than she'd ever felt in her falling-apart apartment. She thought about the umbrella on his desk, kept like a talisman. She thought about his sister, dead trying to save people. She thought about the genuine terror in his eyes that rainy night. "Your panic attack wasn't fake," she said quietly. "It wasn't a question. No, that was real. All of it was real. And you really thought paying my bills would make things better? I thought it would make things easier, less impossible." He met her eyes. "I was wrong. I'm sorry." Jennifer pulled out the envelope from her bag, the $500 still inside, and set it on his desk. "I can't take this. Any of it. The rent, the car, I'll pay it back somehow. Please don't." Julian's voice was urgent. "The rent and the car are done. They're not loans. Consider them," he searched for the word, "payment for the umbrella. A very expensive umbrella." Despite everything, Jennifer felt a laugh try to escape. She crushed it. "That's not how this works. You don't get to buy your way into my life." "I know. You're right. I know. He looked lost, like he was navigating without a map. What if I didn't? What if I just helped? Legitimately. No more secrets. No more following you or invading your privacy. Just an offer on the table that you can take or leave. Jennifer's instinct screamed to walk away, to take nothing from this man who'd violated her trust and turned her into a project. But she thought about the CPS evaluation in 6 days. She thought about Liam, who'd asked last night if they were going to have to move again, his little voice so careful, like he was afraid of the answer. "What kind of offer?" she asked, hating herself for asking. Julian seemed to sense he was on thin ice. He spoke carefully. "I can't give you money, I understand that now. But I can give you legitimacy. A job reference for stable employment. A letter to Child Protective Services from a community leader. Help finding an apartment in a better neighborhood. Things that would look good on paper for your evaluation. In exchange for what? Nothing. In exchange for absolutely nothing." Julian held her gaze. "Except maybe, eventually, if you're willing, let me learn how to help people the right way. The way Emma did. Not by throwing money at problems, but by actually listening." Jennifer wanted to say no. Every fiber of her being wanted to walk out of this office and never look back. But she was drowning, and he was offering a life raft, and her son's face kept flashing in her mind. "I need to think about it," she said finally. "Of course. Take all the time you need." Julian pulled out a business card, wrote something on the back. "My personal number. Call me if you decide you want to talk. Or if you need anything. Or if you just want to yell at me some more. You've earned that." Jennifer took the card, their fingers not quite touching. She turned to leave, then stopped at the door. "Mr. Cross? Your sister, Emma. She sounds like she was a good person." "She was the best person," Julian said quietly. "I'm trying to figure out how to live in a world without her in it." "Yeah," Jennifer said, thinking about her own losses, her own survival. "I know what that's like." She left him standing in his office of glass and steel, the umbrella still on his desk, and rode the elevator back down to a world where people like her didn't usually get second chances from billionaires. But as she stepped onto the Chicago sidewalk, the business card in her pocket felt like a choice, one she hadn't had before. 6 days until the CPS evaluation. 6 days to decide if swallowing her pride was worth keeping her son. Jennifer had survived worse decisions. She'd survive this one too, whatever she chose. Jennifer didn't call. Not that day, not the next, not the day after that. She threw Julian Cross's business card in the trash, then fished it out at 2 a.m. when she couldn't sleep, then threw it away again. She didn't need his help. She didn't need anyone's help. She'd gotten this far alone, and she'd get through the CPS evaluation alone too. She picked up the 4th job, weekend cleaning at an office building downtown, 4 hours Saturday and Sunday, cash under the table. Added to her hospital nights, coffee shop mornings, and grocery store evenings, it meant she was working 96 hours a week. It meant she saw Liam for maybe an hour a day, usually when he was half asleep. It meant Mrs. Rodriguez was watching him more than Jennifer was, and the guilt of that sat in her chest like broken glass. But it also meant she'd have enough for first month's rent on a new apartment. A real one, in a better neighborhood, the kind of place that would impress a social worker. She'd found a 1-bedroom in Logan Square, small, but clean, with a landlord who didn't ask too many questions if you paid in cash. She could make this work. She had to make this work. Tuesday night, she fell asleep standing up while mopping the hospital's 4th-floor hallway. She woke up when her head hit the wall, the mop bucket clattering to the floor, dirty water spreading across the linoleum like an accusation. Her supervisor found her sitting in the puddle, too tired to stand. "Jennifer, go home. You're no good to anyone like this." "I'm fine. I'll clean it up." "You're not fine. You haven't been fine in weeks." The supervisor, Maria, who'd worked at the hospital for 20 years and had seen everything, crouched beside her. "I don't know what you're running from, but you can't run forever. Eventually, you just fall down." Jennifer went home. She climbed the 3 flights to their apartment at 3 a.m. and found Liam awake, sitting at the kitchen table with Mrs. Rodriguez. He was crying, silent tears tracking down his cheeks, and when he saw Jennifer, he didn't run to her like he usually did. He just looked at her with those big, dark eyes full of something that looked like resignation. What happened? What's wrong? Jennifer dropped to her knees beside him. He had a nightmare, Mrs. Rodriguez said gently. He thought you weren't coming back. Baby, I always come back. Always. Jennifer pulled him into her arms, but Liam felt stiff, distant. You're never here, he whispered into her shoulder. You're always working. The social worker asked me if I was happy, and I didn't know what to say. Something broke open in Jennifer's chest. What did you tell her? I said I missed you. Liam pulled back, wiped his nose. I told her I wished you didn't have to work so much. Was that bad? Did I say the wrong thing? Jennifer looked at Mrs. Rodriguez, who wouldn't meet her eyes. She looked at their apartment, the peeling paint, the space heater, the empty refrigerator visible from where she knelt. She looked at her son, 6 years old, and already learning that love wasn't enough, that sometimes the people who loved you most were the ones who couldn't be there. She was killing herself trying to keep him, and in the process, she was losing him anyway. Wednesday morning, she didn't show up to the coffee shop. She slept until noon, made Liam pancakes for breakfast, and took him to the park. They fed Duck stale bread she'd brought from home, and Liam laughed for the first time in weeks. And Jennifer tried not to think about the shifts she was missing, the money she was losing, the way her carefully constructed plan was already falling apart. Thursday, she got written up at the grocery store for being late. The manager, a man who'd never liked her anyway, made it clear this was her final warning. One more mistake, and she was done. Friday, her car made that sound again, the grinding, screaming death rattle that meant the repair hadn't fixed whatever was fundamentally broken. She made it to the hospital parking lot before smoke started pouring from under the hood. The mechanic, the same one who'd fixed it before, shook his head sadly. Different problem this time. Radiator shot. Engine's overheating. I can patch it, but honestly, Miss Smith, this car's not worth throwing good money after bad. How much to patch it? 300. But it'll just be something else next month. Jennifer sat in the garage's grimy waiting room and did the math. 300 for the car repair meant she couldn't afford the apartment deposit. No deposit meant no new apartment. No new apartment meant the CPS evaluation in 2 days would find her still in the same falling-apart place with the same unstable situation. She'd worked herself into the ground, and she was exactly where she'd started. Worse, actually, because now she was exhausted, written up at 2 jobs, and Liam was having nightmares about her disappearing. Her phone buzzed. A text from Diane Martinez, the social worker. Home visit scheduled for Sunday, 2 p.m. Please ensure Liam is present and the apartment is prepared for evaluation. This is your final assessment. Jennifer stared at the message until the words blurred. Sunday. 2 days. She looked around the waiting room. Faded posters about oil changes, coffee that tasted like battery acid, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. This wasn't living. This was just surviving, and she wasn't even doing that well anymore. She pulled Julian Cross's business card from her wallet. She'd kept it there, despite throwing away the copies, despite telling herself she didn't need it. The edges were worn from her touching it, turning it over and over in her hands during sleepless nights. Her thumb hovered over the numbers. All she had to do was call. All she had to do was ask. He'd offered help legitimately, no strings, no secrets. A job reference, a letter to CPS, help with the apartment, things that wouldn't make her dependent, just less impossible. But asking meant admitting she couldn't do it alone. Asking meant accepting that sometimes pride was a luxury she couldn't afford. Asking meant owing someone, and in Jennifer's experience, owing people always came back to hurt you. She put the card away and called the mechanic instead. Patch the radiator. I'll pick it up tomorrow. Sunday would come whether she was ready or not. She'd face it the same way she'd faced everything else in her life, alone, with her head up and her son's hand in hers. If that wasn't enough for the social worker, then maybe it was never going to be enough. But at least she'd know she did it herself. At least she'd know she didn't break. The call came from Liam's school at 10:47 a.m. on Saturday, interrupting Jennifer's cleaning shift at the downtown office building. Miss Patterson's voice was tight, professional, the warmth Jennifer remembered from their first meeting completely gone. "Miss Smith, I need you to come pick up Liam immediately. There's been an incident." Jennifer's blood went cold. "Is he hurt? What happened?" "He's not injured, but we need to discuss this in person. How soon can you be here?" She abandoned her mop bucket, told her supervisor she had an emergency, and drove her patched-together car across Chicago with her heart in her throat. The school's parking lot was nearly empty on a Saturday, just the principal's car and one other vehicle she didn't recognize. Liam sat in the main office, his knees pulled to his chest, a bruise blooming on his cheekbone. "Baby, what happened?" Jennifer reached for him, but Miss Patterson stepped between them. "Mrs. Chun, the principal, would like to speak with you first." In the principal's office, Jennifer learned that Liam had gotten into a fight during the after-school program. Another boy, bigger and older, had been bullying a smaller kid, shoving him into lockers. Liam had intervened, and when the bully pushed him, Liam had pushed back. They crashed into a display case, shattering glass, destroying student artwork that had been set up for the upcoming parent showcase. "I understand Liam was defending another student," Principal Chin said, her expression grave. "But the response was disproportionate. The damage is significant, nearly $800. And given the circumstances with your home situation," she glanced at a file on her desk, and Jennifer knew exactly what it contained. The CPS case, the evaluation, everything. "I'll pay for the damages," Jennifer said, though she had no idea how. $800 might as well be $8 million. "That's not all. I've been contacted by Child Protective Services. They're conducting an evaluation, and they asked for a report on Liam's behavior and well-being at school." Principal Chin folded her hands. "I have to be honest with you, Miss Smith. Liam has been struggling. He's tired, distracted, falling asleep in class. His grades have dropped. And now this incident. I'm required to report all of this to CPS." Jennifer felt the walls closing in. He was defending someone. He's a good kid. I know he is. But he's also a scared kid who's acting out because his world feels unstable. The principal's voice softened slightly. "Miss Smith, I'm not trying to make this harder for you. I'm trying to help you see that whatever you're doing right now isn't working." Jennifer picked up Liam in silence, holding his hand as they walked to the car. He didn't speak until they were pulling out of the parking lot. "Am I in trouble?" His voice was so small. "No, baby, you're not in trouble. You did the right thing standing up for that other kid." Jennifer glanced at him, saw tears tracking down his face. "You just have to be more careful, okay?" "You can't," she stopped herself. She'd been about to say you can't give them reasons to take you away, but that was too much weight for a 6-year-old to carry. "I'm sorry I broke the glass," Liam whispered. "I know. It's okay. We'll figure it out." But Jennifer had no idea how. Sunday morning, she woke to loud knocking. The landlord stood at her door with another eviction notice, this one official, legal, impossible to ignore. "The clerical error from before has caused problems with my accounting," he said flatly. "Someone paid your rent, then initiated a chargeback through their bank. I'm out 2 months' rent, and my patience is done. You have 30 days, Miss Smith. Find somewhere else." "Wait, a chargeback? Who?" But Jennifer already knew. Julian Cross. He'd paid her rent, and now he'd taken the payment back, maybe realizing she'd never accept his help, maybe punishing her for refusing. The betrayal cut deeper than she expected. "I don't care about your personal drama." 30 days. The landlord left. Jennifer stood in her doorway, eviction notice in hand, and felt everything crumble. The school incident, $800 in damages, the CPS report, another eviction, her car barely running, her body so exhausted she could barely stand. The home evaluation was in 6 hours. She looked at their apartment with fresh eyes, seeing it the way Diane Martinez would see it. The peeling paint, the space heater because the radiator barely worked, the refrigerator with more empty shelves than full ones. She looked at Liam, still in his pajamas, the bruise on his face dark and damning. There was no way she was passing this evaluation. No amount of cleaning or pretending could hide the truth. She was drowning, and she'd been drowning for so long she'd forgotten what breathing felt like. Jennifer pulled out her phone with shaking hands. Julian Cross's number was still in her contacts, added from the business card she kept despite everything. She stared at it for a long time, pride and desperation warring in her chest. She thought about Liam asking if they had to move again. She thought about his nightmares, his tears, his small voice saying, "I miss you." She thought about all the times she told herself that asking for help was weakness, that she had to do this alone to prove she was strong enough. But what if being strong enough meant knowing when you couldn't do it alone? Her finger hovered over the call button. In 6 hours, a social worker would knock on her door and decide whether she got to keep her son. In 6 hours, Jennifer would either prove she could provide a stable home, or she'd prove that love, no matter how fierce, wasn't always enough. She pressed call before she could change her mind. It rang once, twice. On the third ring, Julian's voice, cautious and surprised. "Jennifer, I need help," she said, and the words felt like both surrender and salvation. "I know I said no. I know I was angry. But I need help, and I don't have anyone else to ask. And if you were serious about the offer," her voice cracked, "please, I can't lose my son." There was a pause, then Julian's voice, steady and sure. "Tell me what you need. Tell me everything." So she did. The school incident, the damages, the eviction, the evaluation in 6 hours. She laid it all out, every broken piece of her life, and waited for him to tell her it was too late, too much, too complicated. Instead, he said, "I'm coming over. We'll figure this out together." "But Jennifer," his voice turned serious, "after this is done, after the evaluation, we need to talk. Really talk. About boundaries, about what help actually looks like, about doing this the right way." "Okay," Jennifer whispered. "Okay." She hung up and looked at Liam, who was watching her with those two old eyes. "Who was that, Mom?" "Someone who might be able to help us," Jennifer said. "Someone I should have called sooner." It wasn't surrender, she told herself. It was survival. And maybe, just maybe, learning the difference between the two was what growing stronger actually meant. Julian arrived 40 minutes later with his assistant Marcus, a woman he introduced as his attorney, and a plan that felt both like rescue and invasion. They moved through Jennifer's apartment with efficient purpose, the attorney taking photos, Marcus making calls about emergency apartment rentals, Julian sitting at her kitchen table reviewing documents for the CPS evaluation. "We need character references," he said, pulling out a laptop. "Employers, teachers, community members. I can provide one as a..." He paused, searching for the right word. "As someone you've helped. It's legitimate. You did help me. That was one night," Jennifer said, watching these people in expensive suits transform her life in real time. "I gave you an umbrella. You gave me more than that." Julian's eyes met hers. "But if you're not comfortable with me writing a letter, I understand. We can find others." The attorney, sharp-eyed and no-nonsense, looked up from her phone. "Mr. Cross, we should discuss the optics. If you're planning to involve yourself in this case, there are implications." "I don't care about implications. Your board will." Jennifer felt like she was watching a conversation happening in a language she didn't speak. "What does his board have to do with this?" The attorney exchanged a glance with Julian. "Cross Technologies is a publicly traded company. Mr. Cross's personal activities can affect stock prices, investor confidence. If this becomes public..." "It won't," Julian said firmly. "This is private, personal." But the attorney looked unconvinced. Diane Martinez arrived at exactly 2 p.m. Jennifer had cleaned frantically for the past few hours, Liam tucked away at Mrs. Rodriguez's apartment to give her space. The social worker moved through the rooms with the same efficiency Julian's team had, but her eyes were kinder, more understanding. "The apartment situation has changed," Jennifer said, hating how her voice shook. "I have an eviction notice, but I'm working on finding a new place. I have references, letters of support. From Julian Cross. Diane's eyebrows rose. She held up her tablet, showing an email. He sent a very detailed letter this morning. Quite compelling, actually. He described your character, your dedication, your resourcefulness. He also mentioned he's willing to provide employment references and assist with housing placement. Jennifer's stomach dropped. He already sent it? Without telling me. He also included documentation of a trust fund he's established for Liam's education. $250,000, managed by an independent fiduciary. Diane watched Jennifer's face carefully. That's quite a gesture from someone you apparently met once. It's not. I didn't ask for that. I didn't even know. Jennifer felt trapped, manipulated, even though Julian was trying to help. Can you disregard the letter? I don't want his money. I don't want any of this. Miss Smith, my job is to determine what's best for Liam. If someone with resources wants to help your family achieve stability, I can't ignore that. Diane's voice gentled. But I do need to understand the nature of your relationship with Mr. Cross. Is this romantic? Financial? Are there expectations attached to his assistance? No. God, no. I barely know him. Jennifer sank into a chair. He thinks he owes me something. And I was desperate enough to accept. The evaluation continued, but Jennifer could barely focus. When Diane finally left 2 hours later, her report was inconclusive. Not a denial of custody, but not an approval either. I need more time to assess the situation, she said, particularly given these new developments. I'll make my recommendation within the week. Jennifer closed the door and immediately called Julian. He answered on the first ring. You sent a letter without asking me? The anger she'd been suppressing for hours erupted. You set up a trust fund for Liam? What the hell, Julian? I was trying to help. By making decisions about my life without my consent. Again, Jennifer paced her small living room. Do you not see the pattern here? You keep doing things to me instead of with me. You asked for help. I gave it. I asked for support with the evaluation. Not for you to establish trust funds and send letters that make it look like she stopped herself. Like you're what? Like I'm sleeping with you for money, Jennifer said bluntly. That's what the social worker was asking. What everyone's going to think. Julian was quiet for a long moment. I didn't think about that. I should have. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix it. The story broke on Tuesday. Jennifer didn't know how. Julian suspected someone from his company leaked it. Maybe someone on the board who didn't approve of his charitable activities. But suddenly her face was on gossip websites, her name in headlines. Tech Billionaire's secret charity case, and Julian Cross's mysterious single mother. Photographers appeared outside her apartment. They followed her to work. One showed up at Liam's school, trying to take pictures through the fence during recess until Principal Chun called security. Jennifer's supervisor at the hospital pulled her aside Wednesday morning. I'm getting calls from reporters asking about you. They want to know about your relationship with Julian Cross. Corporate is nervous about the publicity. The message was clear. The attention was a problem, and problems didn't keep their jobs. The coffee shop was more direct. We can't have cameras outside our store, the manager said. It's disruptive. I'm going to have to let you go. Thursday morning, Jennifer sat in her car outside the grocery store, trying to gather courage to go inside for her shift when her phone rang. Julian, don't answer it, she told herself. But she did. I'm handling the media, he said without preamble. My PR team is drafting a statement. We'll shut this down. You can't shut it down. It's already everywhere. Jennifer had made the mistake of Googling herself. The comments were vicious, gold digger, opportunist, using her son to trap a billionaire. I lost my job at the coffee shop. The hospital's nervous. Liam's school has photographers outside. This is exactly what I was afraid of. I'll fix it. You can't fix everything, Julian. Her voice cracked. Don't you get it? Your help is making things worse. I was barely surviving before, but at least I was invisible. Now I'm a spectacle. Then let me make it worth the spectacle. Move into a better apartment, Let me provide real support, so I can be even more dependent on you. So every decision I make is because of your money." Jennifer laughed bitterly. "I need to back out. I need to return the letters, refuse the trust fund, tell CPS this was all a mistake." "You can't," Julian said quietly. Something in his tone made Jennifer's blood run cold. "What do you mean I can't? The documents are already submitted. The trust is established. It's irrevocable, managed by independent trustees. Even if you want to back out, it's part of the official record now. CPS has it. It's evidence of Liam's financial stability." "You made me dependent," Jennifer whispered. "Whether I chose it or not, whether I wanted it or not. You backed me into a corner where I have to accept your help because refusing it now makes me look like I'm harming my own son. That's not, I didn't mean. I know you didn't mean it. You never mean it, Julian. But you keep doing it anyway." Jennifer closed her eyes. "I have to go. I have to figure out how to explain to Liam why there are men with cameras following him to school. I have to figure out how to keep my last job. I have to figure out how to live with the fact that I asked for help and got a cage instead." She hung up before he could respond. Through her windshield, she could see a photographer in a parked car across the street, camera already raised. Jennifer started her car and drove away, no destination in mind, just the desperate need to disappear. But you couldn't disappear when a billionaire had decided to save you. You could only wait to see what his good intentions would destroy next. The hearing was scheduled for Friday morning at the Cook County Juvenile Court building, but by 8 a.m. the front steps were crowded with reporters. Jennifer watched from Marcus's car. Julian had insisted she not drive herself, not face the cameras alone. As photographers jostled for position, their lenses like accusations pointed at the entrance. "We can go through the back," Marcus offered quietly. "No." Jennifer squared her shoulders. "I'm not hiding. I didn't do anything wrong." But walking through that crowd, microphones shoved in her face, questions shouted about her relationship with Julian Cross, about whether she was using her son to get money, about whether she was a fit mother at all. It felt like being stripped naked in public. She kept her head up and her hand tight on Liam's, who pressed against her side like he could make himself invisible. The courtroom was smaller than she'd expected, more like a conference room than the dramatic spaces from TV shows. Diane Martinez sat at one table with her files. Jennifer and a court-appointed advocate sat at another. And across the room, people Jennifer hadn't seen in 3 years, Robert and Patricia Bennett, Liam's paternal grandparents, with an attorney who probably cost more per hour than Jennifer made in a month. Her stomach dropped. "What are they doing here?" The advocate, a tired-looking woman named Ms. Okafor, flipped through papers. "They've petitioned for custody. They have standing as family members." "You didn't know." Jennifer hadn't known. The last time she'd seen the Bennetts was at their son David's funeral, when they'd looked at her with such cold contempt it had felt like frostbite. David had been Liam's father, college boyfriend, charming and reckless, who died in a motorcycle accident when Liam was 6 months old. His parents had blamed Jennifer somehow, as if love could have kept him from speeding around curves in the rain. Patricia Bennett looked exactly the same. Perfect silver hair, expensive suit, the kind of composed wealth that never showed cracks. She stared at Jennifer across the courtroom like she was looking at garbage. The hearing began with Diane Martinez's report. She laid out the facts clinically: Jennifer's employment instability, the multiple jobs, the eviction notices, the apartment conditions. But she also noted Jennifer's dedication, her love for Liam, the absence of any abuse or neglect. "This is a case of poverty, not poor parenting," Diane said carefully. However, recent developments have complicated the assessment. She described Julian's involvement, the paid rent, the trust fund, the media attention. "I'm concerned about the sustainability of Mr. Cross's support and what happens if it's withdrawn. I'm also concerned about the impact of media scrutiny on the child's well-being." Then it was the Bennett's attorney's turn. He painted a picture of Jennifer as unstable, desperate, and now entangled with a billionaire in a relationship that was either exploitative or transactional. He presented the Bennett's case: a stable home in Winnetka, excellent schools, financial security, family legacy. Liam deserves the life his father would have wanted for him, the attorney said. Not chaos and tabloid headlines. Patricia Bennett testified about their home, their resources, their love for their grandson. She cried prettily when describing how much they missed him, how they wanted to honor their son's memory by raising his child properly. She didn't look at Jennifer once. When Julian was called to testify, the courtroom buzzed with new energy. He wore a suit that probably cost what Jennifer made in 6 months, and he looked calm, controlled, nothing like the broken man from the rainstorm. The Bennett's attorney went straight for blood. Mr. Cross, how would you characterize your relationship with Miss Smith? She helped me during a difficult time. I'm trying to return the favor by establishing a $250,000 trust fund for her son, by paying her rent. That's quite a favor for someone you barely know. I have the resources to help. She needed help. It seemed straightforward. Is there a romantic relationship between you and Miss Smith? No. Do you hope there will be? Julian paused, and in that pause, Jennifer saw the cameras in the gallery section capturing everything. My personal feelings are irrelevant to Liam's well-being, but they're relevant to whether this financial support is sustainable or conditional. What happens when you lose interest in this charitable project? When the next struggling single mother catches your attention? Julian's jaw tightened. That's not what this is. Then what is it, Mr. Cross? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like a billionaire playing savior with a vulnerable woman's life, and a child caught in the middle. Jennifer watched Julian struggle to answer, and she realized he didn't have one. Because maybe the attorney was right. Maybe this was all just Julian trying to fix something unfixable, and she and Liam were collateral damage. When it was Jennifer's turn, her hands shook so badly she had to clasp them in her lap. Miss Okafor asked gentle questions about her work history, her plans, her love for Liam. The Bennett's attorney asked cruel ones about evictions, job losses, whether she really thought chaos and poverty were better for a child than stability and wealth. Finally, the judge, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and an exhausted expression, asked Jennifer directly, Miss Smith, what do you think Liam needs most? Jennifer looked at her son, sitting in the gallery between Mrs. Rodriguez and a social worker, his eyes wide and scared. She thought about all the ways she'd failed him and all the ways she'd tried. She thought about the Bennett's perfect home and Julian's money and everything she couldn't give. Then she thought about Liam's nightmares, his tears, his small voice saying, I miss you. He needs his mother, Jennifer said, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. Not a mansion or a trust fund or people who can give him everything except the one person who knows that he's afraid of thunderstorms and loves dinosaurs and says his prayers every night asking God to make sure I come home safe. The Bennetts can give him money. Mr. Cross can give him opportunities. But I can give him something neither of them can. I can give him me. Every day. Every struggle. Every moment. Not because it's easy or convenient or looks good, but because he's mine and I'm his, and that's what love actually means. She turned to the judge. I know I'm not perfect. I know I don't have the resources they have, but I'm learning. I'm trying. And maybe accepting help doesn't make me weak. Maybe it makes me smart enough to know when my son needs more than just my pride. But the help has to be on my terms, with my choices, with my dignity intact. Because Liam doesn't just need stability. He needs a mother who shows him that you can be poor and still be proud, that you can struggle and still stand up, that sometimes life knocks you down and you ask for a hand to help you back up, but you're still the one who decides when and how to stand. The courtroom was silent. Patricia Bennett's face was stone. Julian looked like he'd been struck. The judge made notes, her expression unreadable. I'll take this under advisement, she said finally. Given the complexity of the situation and the competing interests, I need time to review all testimony and evidence. I'll issue my decision within 48 hours. This hearing is adjourned. Jennifer walked out of the courtroom with Liam's hand in hers, through the cameras and the shouted questions, into Marcus's waiting car. She didn't know if she'd said enough. She didn't know if love was enough when measured against wealth and stability. She only knew she told the truth, and now all she could do was wait to see if the truth mattered. The judge's decision came via email at 11 p.m. on Sunday, 2 days that felt like 2 years. Jennifer read it 3 times on her phone, sitting on the edge of her bed while Liam slept. Conditional custody, 6 months of monitored stability, monthly check-ins with CPS. She could keep her son if she could prove she was more than survival mode. She didn't call Julian that night, though his number was right there in her contacts. She sat in the dark and let herself feel the weight of it. Not victory, not defeat, just the exhausting reality of having to keep proving she was enough. Monday morning, Julian's assistant called with a meeting request. Jennifer almost declined, but something in Marcus's voice, careful, respectful, nothing like the efficiency from before, made her say yes. Julian's office looked different in morning light, less like a throne room and more like what it was, a workspace where someone tried very hard to make sense of loss. The umbrella was gone from his desk. In its place, a framed photo of a woman who had his eyes. Emma, Jennifer realized. "I'm not offering you money," Julian said before she could sit down. "I'm offering you a job." He explained it carefully. A foundation in Emma's name, working with families in crisis, helping them navigate the systems that had nearly destroyed Jennifer. Director position, real salary, benefits, autonomy. You'd report to a board, not to me. You'd have a team. You'd use everything you've learned, everything you've survived, to help people who are where you were. Jennifer listened for the catch, the strings, the way this would make her dependent. Why me? Because you understand it. Not from textbooks or case studies, but from living it. Julian's voice was steady. And because I need to learn how to help people the right way. Emma tried to teach me, but I wasn't listening. Maybe you can. She took the job, not because she needed saving, but because she'd earned it. Every terrible shift, every impossible choice, every moment she'd refused to break had qualified her for this in ways no resume could capture. 3 months later, the foundation opened in a converted brownstone on the south side. Jennifer worked with families, connected resources, fought systems she knew too well. She was good at it. Better than good. She was exactly what people needed when social workers felt like adversaries instead of allies. Liam started therapy, joined soccer, stopped having nightmares about Jennifer disappearing. The Bennetts sent birthday cards and occasional stilted weekend visits. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. And Julian became something Jennifer hadn't expected. Not a savior, not a project, but a friend who understood that healing wasn't linear and grief didn't have deadlines. They had coffee on Thursdays, reviewed foundation cases, argued about policy, and laughed about Liam's terrible knock-knock jokes. The first real storm of spring came on a Thursday. Jennifer stood outside the brownstone as rain hammered the sidewalk, waiting for Liam's practice to end. Julian appeared beside her, umbrella already open. "Need this." He held it over both of them. Jennifer smiled, remembering another rainstorm, another umbrella, another version of themselves. "Yeah, I do." They walked together through the rain to get Liam, neither of them alone anymore, both of them learning that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is let someone stand beside you in the storm.